If you don't know, I am non-binary. This is a video about how I figured out what my pronouns were. What's up, everybody? My name is Wylde, and my pronouns are they and them. What that means is if you're talking about me when I'm not there, or if you're introducing me to someone, you might say, "Hey Rick, this is my friend Atlas. They love Pokemon. Hey Maria, would you want to meet my friend Atlas? I think they would think you were fun and cool." I am non-binary, and I came out as non-binary or discovered that I was non-binary in 2010. My first year in university, when I got to school and learned about gender diversity and heard the term non-binary, something went off in my mind and I was like, wow, that's it, that makes sense, that's me. I've been out and living my life as a non-binary adult for 14 years, but it's only been 4 years since I changed my pronouns. What did I always used to say about my pronouns? This is what my pronouns are, this is what I'm used to, this is how it's always been. One reason that I suspect my pronouns didn't change for so long is because for me, not feeling like a woman and not feeling like a man, and for most of my life believing that those were really the only two options, I elected the one that felt less bad. When it came to pronouns, I wasn't experiencing a lot of discomfort around using she, her pronouns, in part because I was very used to hearing she, her pronouns, and my process of experiencing gender and moving through my transition has been heavily focused on what feels good, and then a little bit later, what doesn't feel good, and then a little bit later, what might feel good. But each of those phases for me took time. I want to preface this story by saying a reason that I haven't shared it in the past is that I worry that maybe it confirms a lot of stereotypes about myself or about non-binary people or about trans people as a community, and I'm naming that because it's real, but what I'm not willing to do is hold back from sharing my experience if other people who are trans and non-binary or their allies and family members might benefit from hearing it. There is no one way to figure out what your experience with gender is or would optimally be. So the story I'm going to share is personal to me, but I hope there might be things in it that you take from it. In 2020, I did a series of meditations with my grandmother, and the meditations included many that were more oriented towards self-reflection. It was focused on personal development. As a part of this program, one of the more personally impactful meditations was a guided meditation that asked you to visit yourself 20 years in the future. At the time, I was 28, and the version of me that I was visiting was 48. The experience of this meditation was very emotional for me. During the exercise, I felt myself wanting to cry. And after the meditation had concluded, I felt so moved and emotional that I wanted to write down what I had seen, felt, and experienced in my body and in my mind while visualizing meeting my future self. Up until this point in my life, I had only ever used she, her pronouns. I hadn't even really given thought to changing my pronouns. I want to read the beginning of what I wrote in my journal back in 2020. I just did the day 5 exercise, and it included a meditation that took me 20 years into the future. I landed in front of my future home, which was earthy, wooded, quirky, and spacious. It was quiet. There were trees and flowers and a garden. When I rang the doorbell, my future self opened the door. Almost immediately, I started crying. I felt, this is a person who will protect me and keep me safe. At this point, I needed to describe the person who I was seeing in the meditation. I needed to have language to talk about how I was interacting. And despite having never before used they, them pronouns, my next sentence says, they greeted me by placing a hand on either side of my head and kissing me gently on the forehead. I continued to journal about this experience, and I remember it was so poignant because I physically could not bring myself to use the words she and her to describe this 48-year-old future version of myself. It was as though being in my body as a 28-year-old version of me, there wasn't enough clarity as to what my pronouns might be in an optimal situation. But when I thought about that person, the 48-year-old version of me who I met in this this meditation, I knew beyond all reasonable doubt, and after I took some space from the activity, it dawned upon me how central that information actually was. My mind created through this process an ideal future self, a version of me who has everything I want and has it all figured out. And that person uses they, them pronouns. It's giving me chills just talking about it now because it was so profound to me. Sitting with myself, journaling, doing therapy, talking to my queer and trans friends, being involved in the community had not led me to that conclusion. But when I saw that version of myself in my mind's eye, I was able to draw the conclusion that actually it might feel good for me to use they, them pronouns because that person is me. Part of me is a little embarrassed to be so vulnerable, but another part of me really wants the person watching this to understand that there are many paths to self-understanding and self-reflection. Virtually none of them are linear, none of them are prescriptive, none are universal, and none of them are wrong. If you do something, or you have an experience or a conversation, or you meet someone that helps you recognize a kernel of truth inside yourself, that is right. That is true. For me, it involved doing this meditation. For you, it might be more uniquely suited to your interests and hobbies and the important people in your life. Another part of this exercise involved asking some questions of my future self and listening to their answers. And there's a piece I want to share. I asked, what do I need to do to get where you are? They answered, have patience, be present, stay open and vulnerable, refuse to shut down. When it gets hard, take a break, and then get back to chugging. Recognize that it's impossible to be perfect. Give of yourself wholly, and don't be afraid that there isn't enough. This sentiment of don't be afraid that there isn't enough has really helped me to honor myself, to explore my authenticity, and to be willing to boldly express it, to express confusion when I don't know the answer, to express grief when I'm overwhelmed, to express sadness when it's too much for me, but to be unwilling to shut down and to be unwilling to give up. And in my continued efforts to get back up again, every time that one of those challenging emotions comes up surrounding my gender and surrounding my transition, I am slowly becoming that ideal version of myself that I pictured. I was 28 when I first did this exercise, and I'm 32 now. And in the 4 years that have passed, I am able to see ways that I have specifically grown toward this ideal version of myself that I was able to call into focus during this activity. Changing my pronouns was a really big part of it for me. And it was able to lead me to further steps in my gender transition that I had been neglecting or pushing off because of some reason other than what was most important and most true for me. Whether you relate to my experience or not, whether you think meditation is important or not, whether you can wrap your head around me visualizing my future self and discovering my current self's new pronouns or not, there are a couple things I hope you take away from this video. The first is that knowing and exploring yourself and learning who you are is a worthwhile endeavor, and it will be unique to you. So be open to different kinds of experiences informing your reality and your truth. The second is that you get to change. You get to change your mind. You get to make different decisions. You are not burdened to continue to make true something that you said in the past. Please, if you don't remember anything else, don't let your past behaviors limit your future path. You get to change. You're encouraged to change. And finally, maybe this is the only thing you're able to take away from this video. It does not matter what you think about the fact that this was true for me. If it helps you, I think that's great, and that's my reason for sharing it. But if you think it's woo-wooey or BS or not relevant, it doesn't matter, because this experience was impactful for me. I want this information to empower you to not care what I think or what anyone else thinks when it comes to what is true about you. And I will add a caveat that where safety is concerned, even I make choices to obfuscate or avoid the pure distilled reality of my truth. So equally, don't feel like you need to carry guilt or shame about being secretive of or protecting a part that is true for you that isn't safe in your context. It may not be safe for you to express your pronouns to your family members or in your household, but that doesn't have to be a reason why you don't know about it. And that information will help you become the youest you can in time. It's a small step in a very important direction. Thank you so much for watching this video. Once again, my name is Atlas Wylde and my pronouns are they, them, and I appreciate you being here. If you find this video important, if you think that topics related to gender exploration, self-exploration, personal development, and being your authentic self are key and pivotal the way I do, I'd ask that you consider supporting me on Patreon, where your contributions go toward helping me make content like this. Thank you again, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.